Hey everyone, it's Majori here from the Punk Priestess, and we're just going to dive into some astrology. We're going to talk about the first couple of days of September. I normally do my Witchy Wednesdays where I cover the astrology from Wednesday to Wednesday, but we're going to just kind of talk a little bit more about what's to come the first couple of days of September. It's a really big month and it's starting out really strong on September 1st. So we're going to cover the Sabian symbols of these astrological transits the first couple of days of September. We're going to start with Uranus retrograde in Taurus. So this is happening on September 1st, and it's going to be at 27 degrees and 15 minutes of Taurus. And that is going to round us up to our Sabian symbol for 28 degrees Taurus. So if you want to follow along, if you have your astrological mandala, this is by Dane Renard. You can get it on Amazon. This is a used copy, but definitely if you are interested in the Sabian symbols and familiarizing yourself, this is a great way to start, and we can, look at these together and interpret these together. So we're going to talk about that. So we're also going to talk about Pluto leaving Aquarius, because Pluto is retrograde in Aquarius, and it will be going into Capricorn for the last time in our lifetime. So this is going to be very fascinating, and it's going to be for, a little over the next 2 months. It'll go direct again into Aquarius in November. But, this is going to be very, very interesting. I already talked about the Sabian symbol in depth a couple weeks ago with my Witchy Wednesday series, but this is something I want to just, touch on again. And it is also going to be making a sextile to Neptune in Pisces. And Neptune is in Pisces right now at 29 degrees in 1 minute. And that Sabian symbol is going to be 30 degrees Pisces. So I already covered these in another series, but I just want to, touch base again. There's also on September 2nd, there is going to be a square with Mars and Gemini at 28 degrees and 16 minutes with Neptune and Pisces at 29 degrees and 1 minute. So we're going to have a little bit of some friction. It's interesting if these Sabian symbols we're going to be covering, and we're going to talk a little bit more deeply about Mars at 29 degrees of Gemini. So we're going to be covering those things. And then last but not least, we're going to be talking about the new moon in Virgo, which is on September 3rd, and it's going to be at 11 degrees and 3 minutes. And this will be the 12-degree Sabian symbol for Virgo. So yeah, we have quite a bit to talk about. I'm going to be pulling some tarot cards and oracle cards, astrology cards simultaneously throughout this session. And yeah, I feel like this is some good astrology. This is some very, very interesting astrology. So we're just going to kind of dive deep. I want to show you, I'm going to share my screen with you. I want to show you just the chart for September 1st and everything that we're going to be covering. So, we have here the Uranus energy, so going retrograde in Taurus. We also have here Mars and Gemini we're going to be talking about, which is going to be squaring Neptune at 28 degrees. So we're going to be covering that. And then we're going to be also talking about Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius and going into Capricorn. So, those are things we're going to be talking about. And as well, with this chart here, this is for September 1st, but I do have a chart we're going to look at for Virgo, the full moon in Virgo. So, we're making our way on September 1st. It's still in Leo, but eventually we will have that full moon, and we're looking at that chart in a little bit. But let's start with the Sabian symbol for this this retrograde with Uranus here in Taurus. And I'm just going to read it, and we'll kind of break it down a little bit together, and then we'll pull some cards. So the Sabian symbol for 28 degrees Taurus is a woman past her change of life experiences a new love. The keynote: man's capacity to rise in consciousness and feelings above biological limitations. So I think this is very beautiful of a Sabian symbol because it's about new beginnings, and it doesn't matter like what age you are, you can still experience new love. And a great example of this in my own personal life, and I give this a lot to clients who are older and have maybe gone through a marriage or maybe a couple marriages and divorces, and are kind of unsure if love will happen again in their life. And My grandmother actually got married for the third time, and she was 75 when she found love again. Well, like a little bit earlier, like 73, but it was 75 when that happened for her. And I think this Sabian symbol is very interesting because Uranus is a planet about unpredictability. It's change. It's, sometimes chaos happens with that change. And we can't like really pinpoint Uranus. It's always going to be, even it's like, orbit is kind of erratic. It's always going to be all over the place. And I just think it's really expecting the unexpected is a very great takeaway when it comes to working with Uranus energy. I'm going to stop staring at my screen for a little bit because, with Uranus, we just have to be open. It's like, let go, let God. But this is the Sabian symbol to kind of tell us that anything is possible. And I think that's the kind of the perspective that we have to reflect on with Uranus energy. Is just like, we might think one thing is set in stone, and we might think that our story is written for us, but there's some unexpected twists and plans in our life story. And, Taurus is a very stable, secure earth sign. So having Uranus, I mean, we've seen what it's done since, 2018, 2019, what it's done, especially for our money and our finances, and, changed it and refined it in new ways. And those things are becoming the new normal. I mean, one thing is online baking on your phone was something that happened with Uranus, like deepened, I mean, it probably started before the transit, but deepened in a more external, societal, conditioned way with Uranus and Taurus. But, let's kind of see, I think there's some surprises to come. I mean, some of these surprises might not obviously be that great. I mean, Uranus, it's kind of the duality is that, yes, there can be some very, very beautiful, unexpected new arrivals, like new love, or there can be some chaos attached to some of that change. But ultimately, Uranus is independence, it's revolution, it's freedom. And sometimes it needs to kind of take the rug underneath our feet for us to go on a new path and find our footing in a new way. And this is a good reminder that, maybe we thought all hope was lost for love, or all hope was lost for this, and then something unexpected comes into our life and changes things. And I think this is, kind of telling us that, even within maturity in relationships, there's, with the values, our values shift and change, our relationships shift and change, a very Taurus thing. We can't have our physical body limit us. We can't have age limit us from having new dreams, having new beginnings. And I think it's an opportunity for us to believe that new things are possible. And maybe there's some things that we, started during, last year, even this year, or maybe even the last time that Uranus went retrograde in Taurus, maybe there's things that we left behind that we want to pick back up and give it a new life, give it a new beginning. But with a little bit more of the Sabian symbol here, it's interesting because it's mentioning a woman, but then the keynote is man's capacity to rise into consciousness. And, it's like, we have to know that biological, like our body is just like, there's limitation within our physical body, but our soul, our spirit, like our divinity, there's no bounds. And, our energy will continue to exist and live on outside of our physical body. And our physical body, it's just one form that our soul like has a home in. It's also, when it like a little bit more of the Sabian symbol, I'm just trying to like paraphrase here, but it's just like the feminine polarity. It's very conscious, it's very receptive. And I think this is just something to like kind of think about, of just letting things go. Like, don't force flow with the change that comes with Uranus going retrograde in Taurus. Just know that everything happens for a reason, and you might, in hindsight, will find what that reason is. And I think too, it's just like one door closes, another opens. One door we thought was locked and closed, we're going to be able to open a new door, turn a new page, and having a new lease on life. And I think, the future can look bright in unexpected ways. And we have to count our blessings. We have to sometimes, what maybe felt like the worst thing for us is the liberation that we need, is the freedom that we need to have something new come into our life and, kind of give us hope after disappointment, I feel is a big connection with the Sabian symbol. So, if there's a lot of things you've been hoping for, like feeling like, oh my gosh, 2024, it felt like roadblock after roadblock, or things haven't worked the way I wanted them to, let's see what Uranus has in store the next 6 months of this retrograde. So there's, it's going to be a while, but let's kind of see what happens. And, maybe your situation will change and shift. And if there is something being pulled up from underneath your feet, maybe it has been too limiting and maybe this isn't the path forward. So trust the retrogrades. So that's one transit that's happening. Now let's move on to this Pluto, leaving Aquarius. It's it's going to be at 0 degrees for a little bit. It's kind of like in between this Capricorn energy and this Aquarius energy. And it is so interesting how this is showing up in my life personally. I don't want to get too deep, but it's just like it's just this feeling, and it's hard to find the words of like a collective conscious shift. And it's interesting because I also, outside of having my own like virtual business that I've had for a long time, I also read in person a couple days a week at a metaphysical shop. And it's a very beautiful experience to see certain people waking up and realizing, okay, there's more to life than chasing a career. There's more to life than chasing status and money and fame, fortune, very Capricorn things, and power and authority. There's more to life than this. I mean, those things will always exist because we always have Capricorn energy. But I was reading for a Capricorn client today, and it's really interesting too, how more and more throughout the past 3 years, I've been getting an influx of Capricorn clients, which you don't really see sometimes a lot of Capricorn clients in this work because they're very in tuned to the lower chakras, which are the root chakra and the sacral, like wanting that being able to produce and like make money and stability. And they don't really open up all the times the third eye and the crown. Like the higher chakras kind of get a little abandoned, or just it's not needed if you're working on the material. I mean, you can integrate both. Obviously, that's what we want to do. We want to have like a healthy channel throughout the energetic body field. But I think that for so long, especially in society, I mean, this is like since the Reagan era, there's just been so much indoctrination to, do this 9 to 5, go to school, from these hours, and, go to college and, do these things and have all these things done, because if you don't do them by 30, you're a failure. And you need to have children, and you need to, there's like all these things. It's conformity. Capricorn was conformity. But when I was like counseling my client today, who's a Capricorn, and she's in her late 40s, and she already did the career thing. She's like, okay, I got here. I actually don't know if I want to take on any more. I don't want the highest, title or like the seat at the table. I just want to continue to do my job, make money, have, a comfortable life for my daughter and I, and that's it. And she also is a Reiki practitioner, and she is yoga. She's got her yoga certification. So she's doing these like metaphysical things, which is very great. But there's still this like reluctantness within her. And what's funny enough is that her daughter is also a Capricorn. They're born one day apart, and which is not uncommon because ancestral astrology, the same zodiac signs and birthdays like persist throughout the family line. But her daughter is completely shut off to the spiritual. She's very true Capricorn, like wants to have those things like meet the Jones type of energy that the Capricorn can fall under. And I was telling her, like the Capricorn, the mountain goat, forgets it's not just all 4 hooves on the turf. There's a fishy tail. It's a sea goat. And the Capricorns have to remember to turn around and look at their tail and realize that they have the spiritual side within them. It's always been there. They've always been intuitive. They've always been clairvoyant and connected to their gifts and abilities and their sixth sense. But it's the forward focus of climbing that mountain. We forget that we have that tail. And, I was kind of advising her, like, you've been able to look at your tail and throughout the years and see that spiritual side and, start working in the more metaphysical and embodying that place and wanting to deepen that. And I feel eventually with how the reading was going, she would be able to incorporate that more deeply into her life. And that will be able to take over in time than the traditional 9 to 5 that she spent the past 2 decades trying to build. And I think this is something that we have to think about. Like, society is going to have to start looking at its tail. And I've seen this a lot within just people like still trying to work in that late stage capitalistic realm, still trying to exist and embody that. And it's just like, why? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not going to matter during the age of Aquarius, the Pluto there the next 20 years, like how much money you make and, what kind of house you have and how big and how much money is in your account and, what kind of car you drive and, how expensive the clothes and the bags you have. Like, what's your status at work? What's your title? What's going to matter and care? And what we're going to start seeing the shift is we're going to start seeing, like, how are you caring for people? How are you embodying more of a humanitarian role in your life? How are you giving back to society? No one cares about the kind of car you drive. No one cares about how much money you make. What really is going to be intentional, what's really going to be important is, like, what are you doing to better this earth? Why are you here? You're not here to produce. You're not here to chase a paycheck. You're not here to try to embody all this materialistic things. Like, materialism is very Capricorn. What we need to connect with is a higher consciousness. We have to connect with more individuality and nonconformity and opening up that space for others. And I feel like within the conformity box, it's very rigid. And it's not inspiring. It's interesting because I woke up this morning and I'm going to write a deeper post on this, but, living in the Midwest, you just feel like trapped in its own little way. I mean, it's very, it has its perks, but this is kind of like a little bit of what I wrote of, I wrote a limited view of success. With Pluto at 30 degrees Aquarius or, 30 degrees Capricorn, 0 degrees Aquarius. A limited view of success in the liminal space of the Midwest. That's what I wrote. And how, it's just very mundane and there's, not a lot of diversity. There's not a lot of changeability. We're going to start seeing those shakeups the next, 6 months of Uranus retrograde in Taurus. We're going to see a lot of shakes up with our money and, values and things like that. But, I just feel like, what I wrote, the grandiose of conformity, no originality, comparison, is the complacency of boredom. And it really is true. And I feel like this is the last degree of Pluto and Capricorn. It's like this grandiose, there's no originality, it's conformity, it's all about comparison, and it's boring. It's boring. It's not interesting. And it's going to be a rude awakening collectively as we start shifting into this Aquarius energy, which is just like, we're going to scratch all of that and start over and do something new with our resources, our tools, our knowledge and experience. And we're going to help this world. We're going to help the collective. One thing that is going to be a huge motivator is, I mean, I don't really want to call it a motivator, but it's going to be just a huge focal point the next couple decades, even longer, is this climate, the climate crisis. And that's where we're going to be putting most of our time and energy towards. And I feel like it's not just, we need to get an electric car. We need to make sure that we are supporting the right type of, companies and industries and business and giving our money to the right people, the right businesses, and having it be ethical. That's going to be another layer to all these shifts and changes. But that's why it's like, who cares about your title and how much money you make when we can't even have clean water, or our food supply is running out because we're having droughts because of the climate crisis. We're going to see this whole humanitarian approach and more coming together and group thinking, and and support and networking, because we have to focus on our physical survival, not the materialisticness of it. And we're seeing that the materialism is causing the climate crisis. So, there's going to be like a huge collective shift. And I think what's going to be happening with the Capricorns is like more and more, and just people with like a lot of Capricorn in their chart. I'm very Capricorn dominated, Capricorn moon, and heavy Capricorn fourth house, plus North Node. So I understand the energy well. Sometimes I feel like I present more like Capricorn than Aries sometimes, but I think a lot more Capricorns, and I've seen this throughout the past 3 years, with my business, like they're looking at their fishy tail and they're waking up. This is something I just want to read. I know that was a little bit of a tangent, but it all fits. Just follow follow along. I'm just going to read just, the Sabian symbol here, for Aquarius at 0 degrees, about to move into Capricorn. And it is, and I went over this in a couple weeks ago. You can find, I'll link that, the older post that breaks the Sabian symbol down a little bit more. But this Sabian symbol, it's for 0 degrees Aquarius, so 0 to 1 degrees, and it's an ode to Bodhi mission in California. And this is all about trying to have, structures that have lasting influence. And it's making sure that, at least within Western civilization, that, what we, deem as noble, respectable, important structures, we are having them survive. We're actually putting, intentional time and energy to keep these structures alive, to pass the test of time. And I think that this has to do with like lasting values and like questioning, if the values that we have continued to portray as ideal or important and put a lot of emphasis on, if they still work with where we're moving in time, with where we're moving with, humanity. We might have to change our value system a little bit. This Pluto energy is sextiling Neptune in Pisces at 29 degrees. So the Sabian symbol will be 30 degrees. And, we become whatever we idealized, and we have to first envision it, and then we have to expect it to come into, manifestation. And the Sabian symbol for 30 degrees Pisces is something I also went over in a later post, is a majestic rock formation resembling a face, is idealized by a boy who takes it as his ideal of greatness, and as he grows up, begins to look like it. So, it's definitely like we become what we visualize, and we can do this individually, but we have to do this greater as a whole, collectively. We have to have the same type of vision. And I think we've been working, we've been able to accomplish that with a more Capricorn mentality. But now we're going to be utilizing that in a different way, in a more fluid way with Aquarius. And I don't know what that's ultimately going to be. I think we'll see. We're going to obviously see within the next 20 years what this will become. But there's some new visions. And that's why if you want to have it come into existence, you have to visualize it, you have to create it. And this isn't just a one and done thing, like, oh, I visualized and moving on. We have to have consistency, like come to your altar, have, a journal, have your list of things that you want for your life and manifest them, bring them into existence. It's, the more you play it back in your mind, it feels real and it feels like it can happen. And then before you know it, it starts happening. So I think this is, kind of saying like we're not going back to the way things once were. We're moving forward, but we have to move forward with a shared collective vision that's something new than what we've experienced and seen before. And it's going to take some time for us to figure that out collectively, because a lot of us are still in this old mentality, and it just feels very weird. It feels very weird when there's like a little bit of like a lower consciousness that are still chasing these materialistic endeavors, and the other, like the higher consciousness of the collective are like, who cares? Let's, talk about crystals and their frequency and how this is healing. Like, let's get a tarot deck and work through some type of imposter syndrome that you've been navigating. Like, let's actually deepen why we're here. We're not here to have all these materialistic things, and it's killing the earth. It's not helping. And even if we feel sometimes like we're helping, if we're not giving money to the right companies and businesses, we're just giving them money like under a false pretense, and that's helping them kill and destroy this earth. So that's a huge shift. Like with our resources, we're going to go back to, more secondhand. We're already seeing it with the huge movement of the vintage and thrifty market. We're going to go more deeper into, making our own food, making our own, soaps, and selling it in our community. And, that's where we're going. We're not going to the mass produce, let's, have all these, a million different products, when it's just materialism. So, I think that's something, to reflect on. I want to kind of mix it up and pull some tarot cards before I go into the other Sabian symbols. I just kind of want to start with just kind of a little general overview of what the next couple months are going to look like with these transits, with Uranus retrograde in Taurus, as well as Pluto, navigating itself back into Capricorn for the last time in our lifetime until mid-November. And then, the sextile energy with Pisces, and what that's going to develop. And I'll take a picture of this as well and put it in the post. So you have this to look at. So I'm starting out here really strong. I have the Chariot coming in, and this is interesting. And I like the reversal of this. This is the upright version. I know the word will be, flipped here of the camera, but it's a salmon. And if the salmon's reproductive cycle, it will kill itself basically to just meet a female to reproduce. And then once it lays its eggs, or, I guess reproduce and, does the deed, it dies. That's the male salmon's like mission in life. And to get to the females, it's a battle. Like, you can die in the process, because there's so many salmon males like swimming at the same time. And there's a lot of like currents with the rivers, and there's a lot of like predators like bears trying to grab the salmon as they're on this voyage to try to reproduce with a female. So you might even die on your way to achieving your life goal, which is to reproduce, to continue your species survival. And then once you do that, you die. So it's just like, it's interesting. And I like the reversal of this, because I feel like what this is saying is, there's going to be this rude awakening that we can no longer continue like going on this journey, because it will kill us. It's no longer productive. We can't sustain this high mass production. We can't sustain the lifestyles that we're living. I mean, even the most conscious of us who try to be as sustainable as possible, where, we can't avoid the materialism. It's the infrastructure is set up where we have to rely on the government for food. We have to rely on, all these things. And I mean, yes, we can grow our own, but not everyone has the privilege to have a farm and has the experience and expertise to do it well, or to do it the right way and grow things. And, it's just like we lost a lot of old knowledge and arts. And I think that's going to be a revival. I think those things are coming back. I feel like witches and healers and, practitioners have been bringing those things already, back. And, it's continuing, like new knowledge is coming in that's going to deepen. But I think the salmon, the Chariot reverse is just kind of saying like, we're going to be stopped in our tracks, and maybe rightfully so. Maybe it will be a rude awakening. And maybe we'll die before we even get to do the deed, before we even get to do the job we're meant to do. And we have to check our health. we have to make sure we're surrounded by good people. We have to make sure that we have, I think it starts at home. I think it starts with ourselves. It starts with our soul and spirit. Like, how are we inside? No one's perfect. But I also feel that, we have to check our intimate surroundings. The Chariot is Cancer. It's very intimate. And see if those relationships we want to continue, if they feel in alignment with us, are we on the same frequency? Do we need to find new communities? I think it comes from at home. And, I think it's like a deeper look in ourselves and our value system and our relationship with materialism, our relationship with spirit. And if there's a void, within that. But, there's ancestry. And I think, a lot of this is like, let's bring, some, old living, like maybe we have to go back to the past to rewrite, a better future. And I'm saying this not politically, I'm saying this when it comes to our health, when it comes to, we need to have more home cooked meals and not eating big fast food. We need to, making sure that we're spending in, family values or spending more time with our families and close loved ones and not, in front of a computer all the time, like, at work and just, killing ourselves for a job. Like, we need to make sure we're integrating, healthy relationships at home, and we, are able to, have the knowledge to grow our own food and to find a way to have some type of spiritual connection and even remind ourselves of the past. And this is like some nostalgia. And I think we have to learn a lot from the past of maybe we need to, buy vintage, buy secondhands. Let's go to antique shops or, let's go to estate sales. Like, there's still so many things that we don't need to, keep reproducing these things. We have these things already. We just need to have a little bit more time to find them and to get them instead of just having it delivered within less than 24 hours with Amazon. I think there's just a lot we have to reflect on here. And I think like it's going to be a rude awakening. It's already such a rude awakening with, the climate and, how people's houses are being burned or, the forest is on fire and, we can't even get to point A to point B. The salmon, trapped in its tracks, stopped in its tracks because of other environmental disasters. That is actually a chain reaction to us, to what we've consciously or unconsciously subscribed to. So I know it's deep, I know it's heavy. That's why we're here. But something to think about. I think it's like the Chariot, it's parents, it's family, it's just thinking about, when it comes to intimate relationships, let's see what comes up, what karma, what drama, what trauma comes up with family. There might be a lot there. There might be some people that just don't get it. And it's just like, it's like, this is why they say like you should always have people that are on your frequency or above your frequency, because it's easier to, it takes less energy to go up than to go down. And it's like, yes, we can, bring the lower vibrational people up, but it takes a lot out of us. And we're going to have to do this work as healers, as practitioners, as, spiritual intuitive beings. We're going to have to bring the lower vibrational people, which lower vibrational meaning the more materialistically involved crowd, and it might take a fire destroying their home. It might take, them getting poisoned by the food that they're eating to have the wake up call. I mean, we don't want to go to those drastic measures, but sometimes it does for a lifestyle change and for a new care and concern for the collective, for society, for community. So, wow, that was a lot, but it's deep and it's a major arcana card. So, I think that can be interpreted in different ways, but I think this, the imagery of this card alone, I'm using Way Home Tarot by Bakara Winter and Autumn, I forgot her name. Oh my gosh. Something with a W, Winehurst. I feel like this is a great new image to kind of like enhance the meaning of this card. But, it's just kind of thinking. And it's also, I think we can't have blind faith in these companies, in society, in this government. That's why community is so important, and solidarity there. We can't have blind faith because it's going to kill us. And we also need to deprogram ourselves and ask ourselves, is this killing me? Is this the right way to move? Do I want to continue going towards this, I guess, inherent and, instinctual path? Or is it time for me to reroute and save myself? How do I save myself? I'm gonna pull a card here to see what else is coming in. Uranus is just like, I have to have a moment. I have to have a moment. And here I pull the High Priest, which is the Hierophant, which is Taurus, and Uranus is retrograde in Taurus. So I mean, perfect timing. I do think it's interesting. I think we're gonna like it's faith-based. I think it's mentorship based. I think it's coach based. I think there's this connection here. It's interesting that with the timing of these cards, we have just the lovers, Gemini in between these two. But let's kind of see, and this is actually interesting. Sorry, there's so many threads like coming, but this is interesting because this is when we're having during Taurus season is when I believe we're going to have Uranus change signs into Gemini. Let me just see the date here. In my transit diary. Yeah. So, it's going to be yeah, it's definitely going to start in spring of next year. It's going to be, it's going to be Taurus season. So, it's going to be May of next year. Let's see what happens with Uranus, as it's going to be going into Gemini. And I think this is an opportunity for us to, question the counsel that we're seeking. I think we're going to see a lot of shifts and changes. I mean, religion is already on the down low. Like it's all these extremist religious groups and angelic groups. Like it makes it seem like there's this influx and so many people are doing it, but it's really not. Like it's frustrating that the small percentage gets all the attention, and it makes it seem like, oh my gosh, these religions are going to be taking over, and it's not going to be like that. Like it's been on the decline. It's going to continue to be on the decline. And I think we have to learn how to have more faith within ourselves. And that's why like religion is a control mechanism, because you don't have to think for yourself. Someone's telling you how to think, someone's telling you what to believe. And it's harder to think on your own and to have your own faith practice and to develop that, because it takes power and strength within character. And not a lot of people have that. And I mean, a lot of people do have it, but the ones who are controlled by religion don't have that because they would rather not think for themselves. And I think that's what Uranus and Taurus is going to be asking us, especially with the retrograde. Can you think for yourself? Or do you just need to do what you've been told by everyone else? With the retrograde, with Uranus, it's going to definitely continue it's going to go direct on January 27th. No, I'm sorry. It's going to go direct on January 30th of next year at 23 degrees and 16 minutes. But it's definitely for sure, I think from September 1st to end of January, we're going to just kind of see, can we trust our sources? Can we trust our mentors? Or it's a time, to have faith into someone else, something else, or within ourselves. And I think there's a lot of this, when it comes to resources, our values, our health, this is like our physical well-being is Taurus. It's the body, the survival of the body, survival of the fittest. It's being intentional about how we take care of our body, what we put inside of our body, growing our own food, and, a little bit more of those animalistic tendencies can come through with the Taurus energy. It's the bull in the ring, it's the cow in the pasture. And we have to make sure like what we love loves us back, and who we love loves us back. And I feel with the High Priest, it's like really questioning, the faith that we put into people. And if we are, putting our resources towards the right groups, towards the right people, towards the right things, or if it's time to reestablish that in a new way. So, I think there's a connection here. So, that is, that's interesting. It's interesting. I want to talk about some Gemini energy here. So we're going to move on to September 2nd. I'm going to share my screen again. So, you know, I have, so we talked about here, we talked about Uranus going retrograde in Taurus, and we just talked about Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces, and then we have this 0 degrees Pluto, you know, going retrograde into Capricorn from Aquarius for the last time. And then now we're going to talk about some Mars energy with Gemini here. And you know, this is squaring the Neptune energy at 29 degrees. And, you know, squares are frustration, it's roadblocks, it's limitations, it's challenge, but it's really how we persevere through that challenge and through the animosity. It makes us stronger. It makes us have more character. It makes us not be a wimp, or, you know, it's like, okay, you know, the going gets tough, but I get tougher. So I'm just going to read a little bit of the Sabian symbol for this Gemini, Mars and Gemini at 29 degrees. That's the roundup of the Sabian symbol. And it's interesting because it's going to connect with the moon, the new moon in Virgo. We're going to talk about that in a moment. I'm going to stop sharing this. Okay, so we have here the Sabian symbol for Gemini at 29 degrees, which is where Mars is at. The first mockingbird of spring. The keynote, the creative exuberance of the human soul in response to basic life experiences. And the Sabian symbol refers to the capacity which the talented individual has to take collective material and transform it under the urge of biological productivity and instinctual love. The song rises, powered by these great natural drives. Very much so-called popular songs rise from the youthful soul in response to deep personal or social emotions. And the songbird, the mockingbird, is weaving these sounds that it's making into melodies, which can be very joyous and creative and spontaneous. And, you know, it's an interesting Sabian symbol, but we got to remember this is a square to Neptune's Sabian symbol, which is 30 degrees Pisces. And it's thinking about our idealized self and who we want to embody and who we want to become and be. And this is where conformity is coming in again. Everything's circling back. Everything's circling back. And I think it's circling back to the Capricorn, the Pluto Capricorn energy, and how we're in late stage capitalism. And, you know, there's a lot of conformity. So, you know, with the Sabian symbol, it is, I just wrote a couple like notes here. It's, you know, it's becoming like aware of ourselves, it's becoming aware of others. And, you know, mockingbirds, it's called a mockingbird for a reason. It's because it's imitating. This is all about imitation. It's imitating sounds that it's heard before, you know, and you know, imitation doesn't always have to be bad. I mean, imitation is a survival mechanism. We have to imitate each other to survive, especially as women. Like, you know, we just have this instinctual energy. We got to protect ourselves. Like, we have to imitate. Imitate is, it's conformity, it's survival, it's social norm. It's a community oriented skill as well, is imitation throughout history. But you know, I think sometimes, though, again, we're coming back to conformity here in Capricorn and doing what everyone else is doing. And yeah, I think we have to question, is this imitation healthy? You know, we need to make some new structures to idealize the structures that we've idealized, which was money, fame, power, control, authority, you know, more religious, patriarchal. We have to question if we still want to imitate that. And I think with the cards being pulled in the High Priest and Uranus, you know, retrograde in Taurus, I think this is also a really important thing of like, you know, even imitating, do we still want to imitate the brands that we shop? Do we still want to imitate? You know, it's like, I mean, I know I'm kind of like, you know, a little bit hypocritical here, it's like my Stanley, but I was into Stanleys way before the hype. Like, this is years old. This is way before, this is like, I think 3 years old. This is before everyone else got into it. So I was a trendsetter. But you know, I think that you know, we have to like reflect on, like, do we want to imitate? I mean, even, you know, unfortunately, like, you know, the iPhone, or, you know, I have a MacBook that I'm recording this on, you know, it's like, do we want to imitate these tools? But then it's like the imitation is how we stay together as a community and how we thrive and how we have safety and security. But, you know, I think a lot of it is just like shopping more sustainably and smarter. And it's not just like, oh, you know, well, like I'm going to use an example as a Tesla, because one of my friends got a Tesla recently, and I was just like, why? We're in Michigan, we do a lot of driving. And it's just, you know, if you've seen any crisis movie, you when there's no electricity, you can't have an electric car. You have to get a gas car. And you know, and I feel like, okay, yes, that's great. You want to be more what they say is sustainable, even though, I mean, I'm not gonna get into it, but you know, the mechanisms of Tesla, and I personally don't like them. I think they're very like kind of cheapy cards. I feel very unsafe. I've only driven in like them a couple of times through like Ubers, but it's not for me. But you know, it's like, okay, yes, like you want to maybe go a little more electric and you think that's more sustainable and the right thing to do, but then you're supporting a billionaire, which is Elon Musk. And like, we know that energy. I mean, it's interesting. He's a Gemini, and the Sabian symbol is Mars, like, you know, squaring Neptune. But you know, I feel like this is another thing, like it's different, like masters of evil, you know, it's like, do we want to support these people? Do we want to, like the imitation? We have to get rid of this imitation that the goal in life is to be a billionaire. Like that, no one should be a billionaire. You know, I think we need to like really break that down. But I just feel like, you know, this is definitely, the songbird, the mockingbird, you know, it's playing songs that we know. I think it's also interesting with the Sabian symbol, like the popular songs in the youth and things like that. But it's also, again, like we're so like mainstream, like we have the Grammys, we have all these awards, and like you know, Gemini is the mind. It's also very artistic and creative. It's the writer, you know, songwriting and, you know, musical connections. A lot of incredible like musicians are Geminis. But I think it's just like, I mean, you know, I'll just say one on my mind is Kanye. He's a Gemini, he's a musician. But he's also crazy, but it's also, then he's like brilliant. It's like weird. But you know, I feel that we're getting ourselves in a box, you know, like the Grammys, it has the same people cycling through, you know, to get these awards, you know, Taylor Swift for one. And it's just like the intimidation, the copying, the like, oh, everyone has to do, you know, what everyone else is doing, is this is the recipe of success. And it's like, what if we dismantled that though? And I think this is why the square is here, in it's squaring Neptune at 29 degrees, because it's just like, we have to find a new way of existence. We have to find new people, new talents, new things to embody, and new things to idealize and think is cool. And yeah. I'm just reading a little bit of what I wrote here. You know, it's acceptable when we copy, because it's like, oh, well, we're in a box, we're doing what everyone else is doing, or that's considered cool, or like, oh, people are looking up to you differently or see you in a different light. And it's like, you know, I feel with the salmon reverse card, you know, it's like when you're on your deathbed, does it really matter if you had a Tesla? Does it really matter if you had all this money in the bank? Like, I think we have to focus on our legacy of like, what really matters is our contribution to the world and what we did. Stephen Forrest, one of my favorite astrologers, he has this talk on the North Node and South Node, and he talks about how there was a study done on how, I'm like kind of paraphrasing from what I remember watching this talk that he gave, but the majority of people on their deathbed, they regretted all the time they spent working away from their families, and like they kind of felt like they didn't really do anything more meaningful in their life because they were chasing money and all these, capitalistic ideals. And then the people who were on their deathbed that, felt more meaning once they were leaving this earth were the ones who put, their priorities towards community, towards helping others, towards their family and their friends. And they didn't like really, I mean, yes, they worked and they did things, but they didn't have that as like their personality. They didn't have that as their contribution to why they're here. So, I feel like this is something that we need to talk about more. We need to engage others more in this conversation. We need to give more awareness to people. And I think that we need to just be a part of something different, be a part of something better. And it's going to be, hard. It's going to be hard when your brain has been wired to do what everyone else is doing or to have some type of measure of success. And I think this is something that's interesting of Gen Z. They're not really following that formula. They're kind of trying to figure it out on their own. And I feel like that is something, maybe unique, and we'll see in the next, 20 years with when their rise comes. I mean, they're rising now, but when they establish themselves a little bit more in society, how that shift really changes things for the better. And I just wrote a little bit too on Pisces at 30 degrees, becoming our own ideal. It's a seed of another cycle, it's experimentation. And, do we create God or does God create us? And there's a little bit of that religious connotation here with this Taurus card, and even the spiritual with the Chariot. It's like, I think it's both, we've created this form of God, but then it's also like, we are God too. So it's this interesting duality that we play with our divinity. And I think it's, becoming aware of our archetypes, our relationship to archetypes in this world. And it's all like really about the self-image. It's very like the ascendant. It's very much the rising sign. It's the energy that we give out, the energy that we embody within ourselves, and that gets projected out into the world. And then people see us as that. But they say the ascendant side is tricky because like we might see ourselves that come out a certain way, but other people might experience this differently. So there's always a little bit of a mismatch there. But I just think the Sabian symbol of 30 degrees Pisces really reminds me of the ascendant and how we're creating our own ideal, which is ourself, out into the world. And we need to find like-minded community that supports that ideal. And that's why imitation is very dangerous. I mean, the Nazi movement, that's, imitation, any type of cult imitation. And, it has this premise of doing good. And it's sometimes, it takes the other way. It's manipulation. And, it is good to, have people that we emulate. I think we all need some type of guidance. I think we need inspiration, but we have to also tap in and find our own voice through that. And, have like check-ins and be like, okay, like, do I want to, fully copy this person, or do I need to find my own voice? And I think a lot of us are going to start having our own voice, and we have to have like self-expression. I'm going to pull up the chart for the full moon in Virgo. This is the last little astrological thing we're going to talk about, and then I'm going to pull a couple cards to end. Let's see here. I think it might be, I might have to go. Sorry, you're going to see a little bit of my desktop here. Okay, so this is the chart for the full moon in Virgo. And this is just universal time here. So we have it here. So, also the sun's at 11 degrees Virgo too. So we have, this conjunction. So, there's this very heavy Virgo energy on this full moon. And we're going to read the Sabian symbol for 12 degrees Virgo. And this is the full moon is going to be on September 3rd. So I'm going to read that Sabian symbol. And for 12 degrees Virgo, and this is the connection with the Uranus retrograde Sabian symbol. So after the wedding, the groom snatches the veil away from his bride. The keynote, the penetrating and unveiling power of the trained mind. Powerful, very, very powerful. So the keynote is unveiling. So let's see, what this unveils, what gets unveiled for us with this new moon in Virgo. And we have eclipse season coming up too. The next eclipse is going to be in Pisces on the 18th. So, we're just looking a little bit at the chart here. So, we have some Libra energy, coming up strong. I will talk about this next week with my Witchy Wednesdays, but I will talk about what Lilith and Libra is doing in this conjunction to the South Node in Libra. I think that's a very interesting thing to bring up that we're going to talk about. And then here we go. Here's our 29 degrees and 58 minutes of Pluto going into Capricorn. So we have that retrograde. So we're going to stop the share. So a little bit more about the Sabian symbol. I think unveiling is extremely important of a keyword here. And it's definitely, it's interesting that the sun is conjunct this moon in Virgo, because it's like, yes, an unveiling, and it's, the sun, it's like everything's illuminated. And especially the new moon is dark. So it's interesting. I think the sun and being in Virgo is the unveiling. It's like actually being able to see beyond the mystery. And it's interesting, there's a lot of interesting stuff coming up here. And I think this is also part of the drastic shift and changes of Uranus retrograde in Taurus, and Mars squaring Neptune, as there's going to be a lot coming out with people and their relationships. I mean, even within our own relationships, a lot is being revealed, and like seeing things in a deeper way. I'm already getting that glimpse with certain people in my life of just like, okay, all right, I'm seeing this. I'm seeing this, this different side, or I'm seeing a little bit more of this intimacy. But it's like the mystery of all like intimate relationships, and it's snatching away this veil, this shroud of like, okay, this is like the part that I'm showing you, but then it's like, okay, well, this might be another side. And I think it's seeing the truth in people in a different way. And I'm just gonna read a little bit of this keynote here, a little bit more. So nature is fulfilled by the human mind, and with that will overcome her. She resists only better to be subdued by the power that transcends her, and by transcending her gives her a spiritual meaning. So it's very psychological and spiritual overtones, and it's like physical action, but it's like you think of like a bride and like taking that veil off. There's like the modesty, and traditionally, you were a virgin before you got married, that's why you wore white. But now we're in modern times, and that's no longer always the case. So it's like definitely, you're taking off the veil, you're exposing the modesty, but what happens on the wedding night? Traditionally, you lose that modesty, and then that's for the reproduction. So I think a lot of this is just like it's being snatched, sometimes with utter will, like the veils that we uphold. And I think, revealing, I think there's a lot coming. We'll see what happens in celebrity culture and public culture, a lot being revealed with people. And a lot of this is, once we walk down that aisle, once we've chosen that path, we have to commit to it. And that's like why I think this is so important of like what's being revealed to you. You have to like ask yourself, like, do I want this? Do I want to continue pursuing this with what I now know? And, eventually it's a lot of people, we can think about a wedding and how that's like one of the a huge decision. And a lot of people make it for not the right reasons, or feel like obligated to make that decision. We're seeing a lot of like, there's new ways of being in relationship. But I feel like, it's definitely, questioning is this the only way? Again, the imitation, everyone's doing these things, I must do them too, or this is the only way to do them because such and such did these things. And I think like we're breaking that. And I feel like there's a lot of exposure of like the truth of people being revealed, and not without, maybe not without their will. That might be Uranus retrograde, it's a little bit abrupt, a little bit chaotic, but the truth is out. Nothing is hidden. And with the truth being revealed, it ends the illusion. And it gives you a new perspective and you have a new beginning. There's a lot of revelation. And we can think about this politically too, outside of like our own personal lives and intimate lives with people and ourselves, with revelations. Like, let's see what gets revealed, collectively and politically. And I think a lot, let's see what comes with the election. There's going to be a lot being revealed. But there's no more hiding. There's no more hiding. And I feel like, people, even like, the scum of the earth, the low vibrational, it's just like, they're no longer hiding things. It's just like, this is who we are. And some people don't want to do the inner work. Some people don't want to take that 30 degrees of Pisces and do that self-visualization and seeing who else we can become, because it takes too much effort and higher consciousness to do that work. So might as well just let our demons be demons. There's a lot of polarity with the Sabian symbol. And you think of, Virgo's a virgin. I think this is like a perfect Sabian symbol for Virgo because of that modesty of the bride walking down the aisle as a virgin, and then what happens. But it is like the masculine act balances the feminine dream of visualization. The masculine, I mean, this is more heterosexual relationship we're talking about here, the Sabian symbol, but it's definitely unveiling mysteries long protected by secrecy. So we're going to see, a lot more things come out. I feel like this eclipse is going to bring a lot, too, that has been hidden underneath the surface. I think that's going to be a very interesting, time in society. Let's see what happens the next couple of weeks, because I still feel there's a lot to be unearthed. And I think the Sabian symbol is saying that there's some abrupt things that are going to be coming. So yeah, and outside of marriage, it's like within teachers, within gurus. And I think that's why it's so important that this Hierophant card came up, to have us question those idols, question the mentorship, question the teachings that we're getting, and if it's still valid, if it still supports us, or if we have to go into a new direction. I'm just going to end here with some cards. And yeah, lots to think about, lots to digest, lots to digest. I'm pulling this Oracle card. This is from Mike Wilcox decks here, his Tarot Oracle deck, and I have the Ocean. So, very Piscean. The Ocean, it's only 25 to 30% has been revealed to us. There's still so many deeper mysteries in the ocean. I think this is perfect for the Sabian symbol and like mysteries being revealed. Like, let's see what deep emotional mysteries are going to be revealed in our own personal lives. Let's see, collectively what happens. Let's even see, maybe there's some oceanic discoveries or something with the ocean happens with this eclipse. Hurricane season is here, but I definitely feel like there's a lot of like inner mysteries, inner workings that are going to be revealed to us. And let's see how, that is. Sorry, I'm yawning. I'm just going to pull one more card here to wrap up. And we have our Six of Coins. And interesting, that this is coming up. This is from Spolia Tarot by Jen May and Jessica Crispin. It's about exchange. It's about value. I think this is, the card that's going to summarize it all. And what I've been saying is making sure the exchange rate is intentional and valid. Like, do you want to give your money to billionaires? Do you want to continue supporting the same imitations and structures and conformity? Or is it time to have that mutual support be embodied somewhere else, with someone else, with something else? And I think that is where we need to have a restored balance. It's not going well. It's not going well. I think the people who it's majority of people are awakened to it not going well. And the ones who are protected from it not going well are going to be the ones that are eventually going to experience it not going well. So I feel that, with the Six of Coins here, it's just really saying like, this is going to be your karma. Your karma is what you put your money behind. It's what you put your time and energy behind. That's going to be your legacy. You got to question your legacy. You got to question, like, once the veil is ripped off of you, do you like what you're exposed to? You made your bed and now you have to lie in it. And I'm thinking of that whole song by Courtney Love, I've made my bed, I lie in it. I think that is definitely something we have to reflect on. I'll link that song. But I think that yeah, I feel like there's lots to reflect on. I think, this Virgo season, we have to do things better. And one of my good friends who's a Virgo, she's told me this a couple years ago. She's like, what if and this is such a Virgo thing too, but it really got me this, gave me a really great perspective that I, never really fully thought of before as an Aries, who just kind of does first, think later. But she said, what if I woke up and was the best version of myself? What would that look like? What would I do? How would my day go? And so she started intentionally doing those things, and as little and small as it is. And I think if we can just strive to just be the best version of ourselves, even if it's just 40 to 50% of our day, what would that look like? What would those routines, what would those disciplines look like? And I think that's something to bring in with this full moon conjuncting the sun in Virgo, is like, what if everything was totally revealed to us of what we could do and what we could become to be the best version of ourselves? What would that look like? And how would that impact society? How would that impact, the companies and the people that we support, And I think it would make the world a better place if we all chose to consciously be the best version of ourselves every day. Not just, a year, a resolution. It's like every day, how could I wake up and be consciously, intentionally the best version of myself? What would I need to do? And those changes would trickle down within your family, within society, within community, within the collective, within the world. And I think we need to start thinking about and reflecting on that. And that is some of the homework that we have with some of these planets retrograde right now. So that is like the mini witchy little, energy for the first start of September and the week. And thank you for following along. There's going to be links, there's going to be pictures and all the things. And thank you. And I will see you for Witchy Wednesdays and talk to you soon.